welcome back to All About Ag, a podcast where we share about all things agriculture. Whether you've grown up in agriculture, are a curious consumer, or someone just looking to learn more about the industry that feeds the world, this podcast has something for you. So tune in when we share about hot topics, on-farm experiences, and our own journeys through the agriculture industry. Hello everyone, my name is Cydney, and today I'm just by myself sharing with you all about my experiences at the Oregon State Fair. Unfortunately, Noah's not able to join me because he lives in Missouri and I live in Oregon, so it's a little bit hard for the two of us to get together to do some podcasts lately because we've been home for the summer from college. But we did both go to school together in Iowa. We went to a small private school called Graceland University, and we both just graduated with ag business degrees, among many other accolades. And we're really excited to be sharing with you all about the agriculture industry. Hopefully in the near future, the two of us will be able to get together and do a podcast episode to share both of our perspectives and experiences. But for today, it's just me sharing with you all about the Oregon State Fair. So just a few weeks ago, I was at the Oregon State Fair for the entire 2-week period. I was serving as the Oregon State Dairy Princess Ambassador. So what I got to do was I helped out with the dairy shows. So there was the 4-H, FFA, and open class dairy shows. And we're extremely fortunate in Oregon because we also host the Western National Jersey Show. And that was a really cool experience that I'll talk about here in just a little bit. But what I also got to do on days that we didn't have dairy shows was I actually got to help give some smoothie bike and cheese ball presentations. And you might be wondering, like, what is a smoothie bike? How do you make smoothies with a bike? And what are cheese balls? And we'll talk about that as well. And then I also got to help serve ice cream at the Dairy Wives booth. So the Oregon Dairy Women is the organization that sponsors me as a dairy princess. And they have 2 locations at the state fair where they serve ice cream cones, sundaes, and milkshakes. And they're like known for their milkshakes at the Oregon State Fair. It's like the best place to stop in my opinion, and it's the most reasonably priced as well. So the first thing I want to start out with is just my general experience. So I was there for a really long time, and I'm used to being an exhibitor at fairs. I grew up showing at the Yamhill County Fair here in Oregon, so a local county fair. And then I also grew up showing my cows and goats at the state fair as well. So I was an exhibitor, just like the people I saw in the barns not too many years ago. So it was a little bit weird for me, but also kind of fun to be on the other side of things, as in being a vendor essentially, and guest speaker at the fair versus being an exhibitor with animals. But it was cool to be able to walk through the barns. It was less work per se, as far as like cleaning up after the animals and work before the fair. Like, I didn't have to clip my cows. I didn't have to wash my goats. I just basically had to pack up my clothes and go to the state fair. So that was definitely a different experience for me. But it's also really hard because sometimes I forget that there's a crown on my head and I just want to go look at the cows too. And then there's always people that stop to take pictures and want stickers and things like that. So it is a different experience. There's pros and cons to both. But this year, that was my experience, was being the dairy princess and serving in all those different capacities. So one of my favorite things that I got to do was help out with the dairy shows, as I mentioned. So my job was to basically run the mic. I got to introduce all of the people coming into the show ring, the age of their animal. So like, let's say it's a 2-year-old cow class, I would introduce the farm name and the exhibitor's name and sometimes the animal's name, like for 4-H and whatnot. And so that was really cool. I was kind of like an announcer, I guess, and I was able to make the show a lot more fun and interesting for people in the audience watching. In the 4-H show, I got to add in some fun facts about the different breeds of cows. So, for example, Jerseys, which are the brown cows, they're one of the most typical cows that you see, the second most popular breed. I shared some fun facts about them while they were being shown in the ring, like how Jerseys are known for producing butterfat, which is the component in milk used to make ice cream, yogurt, and cheeses, or Holsteins, which are your black and white cows, how they're known for producing the highest quantity of milk, and they're the most popular breed in America. So I think I was able to help educate people a little bit, as well as explain what was going on during the show, because there's a lot of the public that watches, and also a lot of family, obviously, that come and watch their own kids' show. But a lot of it's like the public walking through at the state fair, and there's more public, obviously, at the state fair than the county fair, for example. So I thought it was important to help educate them, and I kind of had fun with that. I do like public speaking, so that wasn't like intimidating for me or anything. It was more fun, and I've shown cows before, so I knew how the classes worked. Because if you've never shown dairy cows before, it can get a little confusing because they do like a junior champion, intermediate champion, and then a like overall grand champion and a senior champion. So it can get a little confusing if you're not familiar with it. But with dairy cows, there's 7 different breeds, and then they also hold a crossbred class for like 4-H. So if there's a cow that was a Holstein Jersey cross, they would be shown in the crossbred class, for example. Or a typical one we see recently is an Angus cross, because farmers are getting more money for producing Angus cows to produce beef. Dairy farmers are. So I don't know, there's just 8 different classes really, and then each class has like a champion, and then they all run against each other for the supreme overall of all the breeds. So it was really cool to watch. I actually had some cousins showing as well, so that was kind of cool to see. A lot of the genetics are from the same genetics that I grew up showing, because they're from the cows that my grandfather had. And there's only really so many, breeds out there that have certain genetics. So like Ayrshires, for example, Aristocrat is a sire that a lot of my cows are out of, my cousins also, so they were related in some way, which was kind of cool. And yeah, it was just cool to see. They were the youngest cousins in my family, so my family's about done showing, but my grandfather grew up showing for several generations, and that's how I got involved in the dairy industry. I'm actually a 5th generation dairy farmer, which is really cool to say, because it's really been a part of my family for a long time. So it was cool to be in this capacity, seeing people showing and still being a part of the industry in a way that helps to benefit youth. I think that's the coolest part. But with the dairy shows, I also got to help with the Western National Jersey Show, and that was something that I had never seen before. I grew up showing jerseys, but I didn't really show them super competitively. We didn't travel very far with our cows, and the Western National Jersey Show used to be in Washington or California. It would like rotate depending on the year, but for the last few years it's been in Oregon, and it's an extremely cool show. It's very intense. A lot of the cows that I got to see in the show on that Sunday, they were cows that have won like All-American awards. And so cows can get something very similar to like a dog's pedigree, and they get ranked. And so a lot of the cows that I saw in the ring were like EX95 potential heifers, meaning they can be extremely high ranked, very strong pedigree for cows. And so it was really cool to see. And a lot of those people that show, I personally know the farmers or the families. Misty Meadow Dairy's one out of Tillamook, and the owner, her name's Rita, and she is super, super nice and very involved in the Dairy Princess program. So I've met her through that. Pacific Edge Dairy, they have been showing for a long time. My mom grew up showing with the guy who now owns the farm. So it's just really cool to see that a lot of them are still family operations, but extremely competitive, and they do make a lot of money by showing their cows. So that's why it's so competitive, because it's not only, just the accolades and the winnings and, being excited about their cow being supreme, but they also get like a large financial gain from doing that as well. So it helps to contribute back to the farm's success and helps prepare them for the All-American Jersey Show, All-American national shows that they'll go show at later. So that was an extremely cool experience. But I think my favorite part was actually probably meeting the judge. We had a really nice lady from Kansas, actually, and so that's where I'm going to grad school here this next year. So I thought it was kind of cool to just see someone from the same state that I'll be going to, even though she's not super close to Kansas State. She lives about 4 hours north of Manhattan, but it was still really cool to get to meet her. She grew up showing jerseys and had several like Jersey Jug winners, which is a really big show. And so she had several winners, and it was really cool to just talk to her and her perspectives. And I kind of picked her brain a little bit about Kansas and the culture, and she just got me really excited to go to school there. So that was really fun for me. I think the biggest part is just networking, and then even seeing the cows and getting to announce the classes and everything, and just the amount of sponsors that are for each class is just crazy to me. So it was really cool to see a show that size, and to be able to be a part of it and take pictures with the winners and stuff. My mom also grew up showing competitively in that way, and that raised a lot of money for their farm. So I think it was just really cool to see a part of the world that she grew up in and my grandfather grew up in. But I didn't necessarily show that competitively. I did more 4-H and FFA projects, so that was a little bit less competition per se, and more for the fun and the experience, and gaining the knowledge of raising and showing animals. But anyways, the dairy shows were extremely, extremely cool. The Western National Jersey Queen was also there, and she's actually a good friend of mine. And so it was really cool to just experience that and see a show to that scale and capacity. And they actually shut down the entire dairy barn, so they fenced it off from the public. So that way it was very, to par, and it was live casted, like live streamed online. And it was just a really cool experience. I just can't imagine the intensity that judge felt, and the pressure to pick the right animal and to judge them correctly and fairly, because some of those classes were extremely tight. Like from my experience, livestock judging and being able to just tell which cows I think are better or worse based on their conformation, was just extremely hard. Like there were some close classes with a lot of really high quality livestock, and I think the judge even mentioned that as well. So it was just cool to see. And there were dairies from California and Washington, Oregon, and I think maybe Idaho is a part of the Western Jersey show as well, but maybe not. Maybe it's just Washington, California, and Oregon. But there were a lot of good farms, a lot of good cows, and they traveled a long ways to be there. So it was just a really cool experience to see. Now, when I wasn't working the dairy shows, my other part of my job was to run some educational food demos. So we did demonstrations on how to incorporate dairy products into your diet through like 2 really simple snacks or breakfast/lunch snack type foods. So we did smoothie bike demonstrations, and then we did cheese ball demonstrations. And so essentially what we did is we went to this hall, and they had this like main stage, and we had to give a sort of demonstration on how to add dairy products, such as cream cheese and cheese for our cheese balls, and then milk and half and half for like our smoothies. And so the smoothie bike, which I'm sure you're curious about because it's not something super common, we actually got this smoothie bike on a grant project, and it literally is a bike that sits on the ground, and on the back it has like an attachment where you put a blender on top, and there's like blades in it. So as the kids are pedaling the bike, it's actually turning the blades in the blender and blends you a smoothie. So instead of just plugging a blender in and hitting a button, they actually have to pedal the bike to blend the smoothie. And I get to take this all across the state of Oregon with me whenever I go to like classroom demonstrations and things like that. And the kids get really, really excited about it. And I think it's really fun for me too, because there's not a lot of places where you can just see pure excitement about dairy products. I mean, ice cream is one of those when I was working the ice cream booth, but the smoothie bikes also. Like it just gets kids excited about dairy and excited about smoothies. And so it was really cool to be able to present and share that. We basically help to give the recipes, and they have this cool setup with like a mirror where they can see like what we're pouring in and everything, and explain the recipes. So we essentially made a Orange Julius type smoothie, but we mixed up the fruit mix. So instead of just using an orange juice concentrate to make like the orange and creamsicle Orange Julius, we also use like guava and pineapple, and just mixed it up throughout the days because the fair is like 12 days long. So it does get a little old doing the same smoothie over and over, at least for us as presenters and even some of the people that come to the presentation every single day. So we tried to mix up the flavors, and it was really fun, and they all tasted really good. And so that's what's awesome too, is after putting in all that hard work to pedal the bike, they got to actually taste and sample the smoothies. And so it was a really cool food demo thing where you can get people excited about the dairy industry and excited to try new recipes. And we also had the recipe cards available. So like if people really liked the smoothie that we made that day, we had recipe cards that they could take home and try it with their kids. And I think we got a lot of really good feedback. Another part of the presentation is making cheese balls. So if you're used to like the traditional like big cheese ball on a platter and you scoop it off with crackers for like individual servings, it's basically that, but in like bite-sized portions. So we made like little mini cheese balls and then put a pretzel stick in them so you could eat it like a cake pop. And I think that recipe was like very well liked. A lot of people thought that it was really good. We rolled the cream cheese, shredded cheese mixture in bacon bits and stuck a pretzel on it and served it, and people thought it was awesome. And it was really quick to make, and it's kid friendly because all of the ingredients are like edible alone. So if kids like to eat like the brownie batter, for example, this wouldn't be harmful to them at all. They'd be able to actually, eat it and then help make it like with your parents or grandparents. So I think that was really cool for people to see too, because it was exciting to just have a recipe that was family friendly, easy to put together, something you could pop in the fridge and then have all week long. And they're bite-sized, so they're really fun for kids, like after-school snacks and stuff. So we had a lot of people take those recipe cards and ask us questions about them. And that would probably be one of my favorite parts, is actually doing the food demos and explaining it. But then once we're done with the first recipe, we go through the 9-step process that milk takes to get from the farm to your table. And we explain that whole process for the public. So that is the presentation I give when I go across the state of Oregon and share with kindergarten through 5th graders. But I think even the adults learn something from that presentation, because there's always a lot to learn about the dairy industry, and a lot that people don't realize is really common knowledge when it comes to dairy farmers and people in ag, but not common knowledge at all when it comes to consumers. So I thought that was really cool to just be able to share that information and knowledge with people. The education piece is what's really cool to me. And then after the presentation, we leave a few minutes for questions. And I just wanted to share some of the weird questions I got while I was at the state fair. I had someone come up to me and say that they thought homogenization, which if you're unfamiliar, it's just the process of mixing like the fat component with the liquid component of milk so that it's a smooth consistency. Most of all the milk you find in grocery stores is going to be homogenized, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. It doesn't change the nutritional value or anything. All it changes is the consistency, like the structure of the fat. So whether it separates and has that cream line at the top, or whether it's mixed all the way through the milk. But anyways, someone came up to me and thought that homogenization was bad for you because then the fat gets stuck in your brain. And I was so caught off guard, I didn't know how to answer that. They thought that the fat in the milk, if it was broken up, then when you drank it, it would get stuck in your brain. And so they were buying non-homogenized milk and then pouring out the cream and just drinking the fluid milk because they didn't want the fat, because they thought the fat stuck to your brain tissue. And I was just so baffled by that. That was the strangest thing ever. And this was like an older person, like an adult, older than, the average adult age, probably in the elderly category almost. But I was like, what in the world? I just had to explain to them that homogenization doesn't impact the quality of the fat or anything. Like, it's still nutritionally good for you, and whether it's homogenized or not doesn't change the nutrients in milk. And that I wasn't sure about the brain tissue thing. I have never heard of that, so I don't know what is traveling around about homogenization that I'm unaware about, but that was really interesting to me. And then I also had to give milking parlor demonstrations. So there's a milking parlor at the state fair, and we would go and give a speech about how the milking process works. And part of that, we explain how cows can actually eat up to 100 pounds of food every single day, and that helps to keep them healthy so that they can produce milk and gives them a good diet. Well, then I had a gentleman ask me all these questions about how if cows eat 100 pounds of food, he wanted to know how many pounds of manure a cow produced. And so I shared him some information, and then he wanted to know how much urine the cow produced and how much gas the cow produced. And he was just so fixated on all of the outputs except for milk. So I think he didn't quite realize that a lot of that energy goes into the production of making milk, and that cows are ruminant animals, so it's not like everything just goes in and immediately goes out. They have to chew their cud and they regurgitate their food and then get more nutrients out of it. So it was just the most interesting conversation, and he had so many questions for me just surrounding things like that were areas of the dairy industry that's not typically things that we like publicly tell. Like, you don't go around saying that, yeah, our cows produce 40 pounds of manure every single day or whatever. I can't remember what the number is now, but we don't go around saying our cows produce that much manure, because we use that manure in other ways. So it's not necessarily just waste. Like, you just kind of wanted to understand, I guess, if cows eat that much food, how much they waste. And so that was a really interesting conversation. And another really fun one that I had an interesting encounter was I was working in the Dairy Wives booth, so that ice cream booth I was talking to you about. And I was running the register, so I take the money, talk to the people, and then someone else gives them their ice cream cone. But this gentleman was kind of hanging around, and he was like saying all these things. It was just like borderline creepy, but he was like asking me like if I had daddy issues, and if I like modeled for an agency, and if I said I was going to college for agriculture, and he was like, oh, you're doing God's work because God was a gardener, and we need more women that are going to garden for their husbands, and just all of this stuff. And I was like, I don't know what this guy's on, but I was in a professional setting. Like, I had to respond professionally because I was representing basically the face of the dairy industry for Oregon. So I just responded very politely, but I can't believe sometimes all of the crazy comments that people say. Like, I would never have the guts to say something to someone like that. And even like, I wouldn't want to, but even if I did, I would not have the courage to say it. Like, that's just kind of the strangest encounter that I had. But overall, the state fair was a good experience. If you want to learn more about my strange encounters at the state fair, let me know and I'll do another video on that part. But I just wanted to share a little bit about what I was doing at the state fair, how I helped serve, and my overall experience of it. So I overall enjoyed the state fair. It's just very tiring, and it took me a while to get back to my normal routine and normal schedule because you're running like long days and having to interact with people, and my social battery just dies out so quick. So it was definitely an interesting experience being on this side of the fair rather than being a showman in the show ring and only having to stay for a week instead of 2. So that was a little bit of a different experience. But overall, I think we got a lot of good education and shared a lot with the public about the dairy industry and really gave a good impression. So that was kind of my experience at the Oregon State Fair. And if you haven't checked out the Oregon Dairy Women website, they have all kinds of videos from things that we did at the State Fair. So if you're curious about what we did while we were there as Dairy Princess ambassadors, you can learn more there as well. On their social media, they have all kinds of videos. And I definitely ate lots of ice cream. So that's the necessity here, is that I ate lots of ice cream from the Dairy Wives booth. And that's honestly the best part of the State Fair. So thanks so much for listening. That's just a little bit about my fair experience, but we'll catch you next time with our next video. Hopefully some articles about the agriculture industry, and maybe Noah and I can get together here sometime soon and share with you more about both of our perspectives and our experiences this summer in our internships and jobs before the school year and grad school starts up here soon. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week. Bye.